That was such a good conversation. I love that so much. It's so interesting that Lindsay brings up dream because my question involves a dream that I had the other 2 nights ago where I asked Weola this certain question in my dream, this exact question in my dream. So I was like, well, I guess I can ask it today during the call. So Lindsay, how awesome is that you're talking about? But I don't remember receiving an answer. So this will be very interesting.
So let's talk about that for a second. Before you get into saying it, we cannot wait to hear what you have to say. But this is really tying into the conversation we just had, which means that you do not receive in your dreams all the times the clarity of the answer, that you sometimes receive the question. In other words, your question, sometimes you need to get into the place of no to little to no resistance to even clarify the question. And this is what we've been talking about for the longest time now. It is that the clarity of formulating the question is equally important as the clarity of receiving the answer. And so, what you had in this experience is that you were looking, you were on a lookout of really what is the next thing that is of interest to me? What is the next clarity I want to get? What is the next question I want to get? And because you might have not had this balance between your question answer dance in your wake state, the question showed up in your dream. So there is another value if being in this place. You could have gotten this question while you were having massage, or while you were listening to a beautiful story, or while you were really dancing or talking very lovingly with your friends. In other words, anything that gets you to the place of getting the clarification of that, or sometimes really interaction that will cause it. In other words, your dream state allowed you to see something that your wake physicality was kind of coming through, and because it's important to you to ask this question, it found its way.
Brilliant. That is so awesome. I love that. That is so awesome. Um, my question is for you. What is money? What is money from perspective of non-physical? And I'd like to hear you riff on that. What exactly is money? And why do humans make it such a big deal? Why is this such a big deal? I have this wobble around this topic, just like many humans do. And I'm a big dreamer. I dream very big, very luxuriously. And at times I'm feeling sort of discouraged around the topic of money because it almost feels as though maybe I'm dreaming too big, or maybe the universe doesn't want me to have money. And so I just want to hear you talk about this. And yeah.
Like your body, like your body, someone is not on mute. Like your body, your mind, your emotions, your process of getting into the place of steadiness, meditation, appreciation, physical activity, anything that you have in your physicality is tool for this life force, what you call universe or source or God or everything that exists to express itself. And that is that mutuality and never being separate. It's not like non-physical is taking advantage of your physicality to do something that it wants. It's you from that broader perspective coming into this variety and preference making place to get to the place where you can find more of that expression. And that's why you always feel like there is more and more and more. Not more and more that you want to pile up, not even more that you want to experience. There's always more of that life force coming through you, because questions that as they get smaller or bigger, they're summoning the life force to find direction and express itself in this way and this way and this way. And that's why we say that all of those things, that's why we say that majority of your time is spent in discovery time of that which you received as an idea and now showing into your physicality. And so money as well is a tool. Money as well, it is just another way of something that you're giving your attention to and interacting with. In other words, it's a tool that you can use to get certain things, but it's not the money that gets you these things. Money is just the tool used in a form of an exchange. But you can look at money as energy, and you can look at money as attention exchanging, and you can look at money as, or the amounts of money as the balance between your own question answer dance, between your own focused and unfocused dance. In other words, your desiring, your dreaming up big is in the part of observe, choose, get the clarity of wanting, but that it's not something that shows up into your experience. You once get clarified. You want to be in a way, your desires are natural to come through based off of your experience and making preferences and generating these questions, and those questions turn you into that desire. In other words, you feel something that's not really working or not going well, and at some point you get the clarity of question, which clarifies your desire. But then sometimes you give too much attention to that desire. In other words, if you're continuously just being in the area of your desire, or more of desire, you're not on a lookout. In other words, you did not release that desire to show itself into the experience. In other words, desire, the moment you clarify it, is there, but you did not release, in a way, discovery path for you. You did not move yourself into the place of discovery just yet. And that is this contradiction that you're feeling, because you're always at all time experiencing some kind of process, and you at all times yourself are process at all times too. So destination about things being owned or experiences being had are really just the last tiniest part of the whole creation process of that coming into your physicality. And usually when you get to that place, you are then immediately, your life force coming through you is looking for a new way to express. In other words, it is not about you having it and now holding on to it and now saying how you're having it, but the moment you're having it, you're already dreaming up something else. Or while you're not even having it, you're already dreaming up something else as well. But you also want to look into what's coming through. You also want to be in that place of easy and that place of steady, so you can have more focused and focused dance, so you can see more of those things pop into your experience. And some of those things you may not even want to have in your experience, because satisfaction of dreaming them up got you to be so much so in the process that the cherry on the top is not really as relevant, because the cake and the frosting on the top of the cake was so already delicious that you want to have more of the cake and more of the frosting, which is really what the process is about.
It's so cool, because I've manifested some incredible things in my life. I've manifested trip for free to Boston. I manifested a trip to Las Vegas. I didn't have to pay a dime for that. I've manifested a trip to Miami. I've manifested Taylor Swift tickets, totally just without me paying a dime. And so it's really cool how it's really cool how perhaps the manifestation wouldn't have been quite as delicious as the surprise of receiving it without me having to spend any of my own money.
There is several ways there is several topics here. We're gonna just lay them and then go one at a time. There is the topic of worthiness here, and there is the topic of making preference in particular way of you're going to receiving it, and then there is this brilliance of your creation that skips money. In other words, all of them are happening at the same time. We'll start with that one as well. Kosta and Armand owned this first magazine. It was Armand's brilliant creation, and Kosta was in a very light supporting role to it. But as they're creating this kind of environment, and anything they do, they've been doing together that project as well. And as Armand had this big desire for this magazine to provide the lifestyle in the number of amounts of dollars. At one point, Kosta asked Armand and said, why don't you put on a paper everything that you've been having so far as a perk because of this magazine? How many times did we stay in luxury hotels where what you were doing, you were writing something that's so satisfying to you. You were doing it. In other words, you were doing the satisfying process that someone was paying to. They were called to go to Utah to revisit this most luxury ski center, and then they were staying in these most luxury hotels both in Miami and in Las Vegas. And then everything that Armand wanted to experience, all he had to do was to schedule something and really immerse into the experience of it, and then as a cherry on the top, write beautiful article in exchange for this experience. And then once they started putting all of these things together, they realize that they've been really skipping the money part. Not only the people, not only two of them, but the people who were getting the benefit of this promotion or benefit of these stories being said about them. They were skipping to pay to somebody to write promotional material for them, and Kosta and Arman were skipping to have this experience of paying for some experience that they had, and they all were actually in the process at the same time. Kosta and Arman experiencing it, writing about it, and this other side of the equation providing the experience. In other words, there was process involved. There is never really, even when you go, somebody provides you with a service and you pay, there's always some process leaning into that. There is always some process leaning into it. That's why we say that the money exchange is really an attention exchange. And sometimes it really comes down to you seeing what is the value of that exchange on your side, and them seeing the exchange on their side, and then seeing that as it is. In other words, when you start to really go into nitty-gritty and measure too much, then you might feel like you do not have money for this or for that or for that. But once you're in that place of satisfaction and know exactly what you want, that is when those manifestations of your exchange that are happening, they're there. So we want to bring to your attention that while that is a brilliant way of experiencing, it is not the only most delicious experience that you can have. In other words, you can find more of your resonance about providing some of those things and be on that paying side of the equation too. In other words, you do not want to, in a way, exclude yourself for a whole bunch of opportunities where that exchange can happen. In other words, you providing something for someone else that can now interact with what you have providing, and in exchange for that, provide you with the financial thing. In other words, it's always about money and attention, and money and attention. It's always about energy exchange and attention showing itself in a form of money, that it's only the tool, kind of like a measurement tool that sometimes is necessary and sometimes it's skipped, as in the examples you've experienced and mentioned to us.
Awesome. There was a time when Gina remembers this session. I'm most certain she and I had a session, and during the session I had my eyes closed and I was imagining the number 50,000, and I saw $50,000 in my PayPal account, 50,000 US dollars. And it felt so good, and it was so delicious to imagine this. I mean, it felt so good. And Gina, I'm sure you can remember this, darling. And the next day, my aunt had contacted my mom and said, "Hey, I've got $50,000 coming to me." So I'm curious. I thought the money was going to come to me, but it went to my aunt. So I'm really curious about that. It was really delicious to receive this. Was I receiving the image from what was going on there? And that's my last question. Thank you so much.
You were so satisfied. You were so satisfied about your process. So satisfied about the process of imagining. So satisfied about this money coming through. And that your focus of that, not while you were receiving it. In other words, your $50,000 are there for you to discover. But then focused on that number of 50,000 was so clear and so steady within you and so not moving that in your place of steadiness, it had to find its expression one way or another. It just so happened that your aunt had this brilliant experience that enhanced it as well. In other words, you can think about a color or about the shape, and then if that is dominant within you, it will start showing up in a form of variety of synchronicities. We want you to know that your $50,000, if you have not discovered them yet, you're on a path of discovering them. You just want to be more easy about, you want to celebrate those no money exchange experiences. And then once you see more of that, how that happened, which is the system of your attention giving, attention taking, attention giving, attention taking, your focus on focus dance that skip the process of money, then you will see that it's exactly the same way while the money is flowing in and out, in and out, in and out. So Be on a lookout for discovery, not on a lookout for $50,000, but on a lookout for discovery, because every time you see some of those things that were once an idea and now they're in physical experience, quicker way to get to them is really not to see and search for it, but to be in a beautiful discovery, opening up this gift box and this gift box and this gift box, and then seeing that at one point, once you realize that there is $50,000 in your account, or that $50,000 came through your account, you will always see that in retrospect. Kosta had this moment of coming to this country, and everyone talks in United States about being a millionaire and a millionaire and a millionaire. Well, these days more about being billionaire and a billionaire, because Kosta is more in this place of understanding what does it feel to be a millionaire. He's never had so far $1 million on his account at one time, but he's realized at one point that he caught on that vibe, and that over a period of time, $1 million came through, in and out through his experience since he came to the United States, and even more. In other words, you always have an opportunity to be in a place of discovery and in retrospect see what of those beautiful things have happened. And sometimes if you so get thrilled to have this thought and this beautiful image, you want to drop it sooner and allow it to release itself to you. In other words, the fact that this $50,000 came to your aunt and not to you is because you kept the image of wanting $50,000. You did not release the clarity of that wanting into discovery, because if you were to imagine it and then drop it, it can, if you're in a place of steady, download itself to you immediately, regardless of how it gets there.
It's kind of real quick. It's just like with the Miami trip. I had the desire and I saw myself in Miami, and then I just dropped it and then it happened. Just like that.
And that is exactly the same process you can apply to everything. But also, you will understand that some of those desires that you haven't come up, we want to, okay, we will do this really easy game. We have not done it before, but we'll have you now imagine moment by moment that you received, that you have $50,000 and you have this image and it drops into your bank account. What is next? You received $50,000. What is the next thing that you want? But you have to say it immediately now. What is the next thing that you want?
With the money, what is the next thing?
What is the next thing you received? Here it is, image of $50,000. You dropped the clarity of that wanting. You released it into discovery. You did not think about it. $50,000 in your account. What is the next thing?
A private chauffeur.
So here it is, the idea of a private chauffeur. Somebody is knocking at your door with the car of a private chauffeur. What is next?
A bouquet of flowers waiting for me on my front porch.
So here it is, somebody ringing the bell to give you the bouquet of flowers. What's next?
An invitation to have a fabulous dinner at a 5-star restaurant.
And here it is, invitation in your mailbox. And you had a dinner, and now what?
For my mom to receive some really good news.
So there, these news are there. Your mom received the best ever news. She's super satisfied and happy. What's next? You see, what we're trying to get to you to understand, that if you were to experience all of these things one after another, after another, after another, after another, you will at some point realize that your discovery is really what makes it all about. That some of those ideas are okay to kind of cook on a slow, very low fire for some time, to marinate, to get that feeling of really building themselves up. Some of those desires are so important to you, and while no matter how long you wait, they can be within you instantaneously, it is never really just about that and about that and about that. Because if you were to have that experience after a certain amount of time, if you were to skip discovery altogether, or to shorten that all of the things that you're experiencing in your physicality are so short and dropping, at some point, you would see that as a boring game. And so the combination of those that sometimes you wait longer for, with the combination of those easy ones like the trip that you just discovered, or like celebration of what your aunt discovered as well, is really what it's all about. It's about the balance of you finding and having predominantly this steady experience, and then occasionally build up a little bit of a spike over a period of time, and that showing up to you immediately. Because as you experience variety, the balance between your question and answer will always bring you exactly what you're looking for at that moment.
That was really yummy. I'm sitting over here shaking now, so like with excitement, feeling so good. Thank you so much, Weola. You answered. I feel much better. Thank you so much.
Brilliant, brilliant conversations today.